On the 19th of April, which was a Sunday, I went to the Royal Gloucester Hospital. I was met by a nurse who took me in through the door, and that's practically the last thing I can remember. The next thing I can remember was actually coming round, which is about 50 days later. And I was not aware of anything that had happened to me. The biggest shock for me was I couldn't talk. That was the biggest shock. I had someone come from the sorts department down to see me, which my first visit this was to assess whether I could eat or not. She said, try a drop of water, and I nearly choked. She said, yeah. She said, well, your muscles have gone. You're going to have to learn to do this and do that. So she put me on a drink with lots of thickener in it, so it wouldn't go straight down into the lungs. And the food was just through a tube. She said, no, you got to keep the tube. The only moisture I was getting, I could have a liquid there, but I had to lick it off the back of a spoon, and that was it as far as liquid was concerned. So that was it until I went up onto the main ward where sorts was concerned. I'd inadvertently pulled my tube out while I was on the ward, and the doctor came round and he said, well, before we put it back in, what we would do, we'll contact the sorts to see if you can actually go on to a pureed food. So, fair play, the sorts team came up and they assessed me. I still had to have this drink, but they said, right, you can go on to pureed food. So I had a week of pureed food before I came home. They assessed me before I left the hospital to make sure, well, they ordered the sorts team, the physio team all came in, and I had to pass tests before I was allowed out, and then the doctor discharged me. And it was not until I came home that my wife read my discharge sheet out that I actually knew what I'd gone through. She said, you're on a ventilator, which they rung near middle of the night to tell Sally. She said, then you had a tracheotomy, you had pneumonia, your kidneys failed, you're on a dialysis machine, you had a blood transfusion, you had a DVT, and you had a brain scan, so they thought you might have had a stroke. She said, there you go, and you were out of all of it. So I came home. With the physios calling, the first thing they did, they came and assessed to see what I could do. So I used the Zimmer frame to go about the house. I thought I was pretty good. They said I was erratic. There you go, because I was going a bit too fast. So I had to try to control it a bit better and slow it down. So they followed me about the house. They said, do you fancy going up the stairs? So I did go up the stairs and back down, and they were very pleased with that. But again, they've been ringing every week as well as the visit, because I've had 3 visits now from the physio team. So yeah, very good. Last week, the sorts team did a video link, so I had my laptop out on the table out there, and I had to line up a glass of water, a banana, so much mashed, so much whole, slice of bread with butter or jam or something like that, and a dry biscuit. And I had to sample each one, and she was watching the throat muscles and asking questions as I went through. And luckily, I passed it. What I had to have was someone present in case any food, and I started to choke. So my wife's niece is a nurse, so she actually came up and sat here with me. But as it happens, I didn't need her, so fantastic. And again, she rang yesterday again to make sure everything was going good. Oh, really impressed, very impressed. I never had to contact the hospital for anything. They contacted me. Every department, the sorts team 2 or 3 times, the physio department, the dietitian, everyone contacted me and basically plotted my path to recovery. So even when I was at home, they were there supporting all the time. I've never felt at any stage did I ever feel worried. Not at all. Not one bit. So I was so confident of the support in the house and from the hospital. So